Well met, explorer. You have landed upon the Moonday Monday podcast. I, Spark Vizsla, shall be your guide into the stars. Now let's get you resupplied, so as you return on your journey to the cosmic stage, you are well equipped with knowledge. Upon the cosmic stage, Lady Selene glides across the heavens, emerging from the darkness, waxing her crescent in the light of her brother Helios. So, I've been doing this for about a month. It is podcast number 4, and I want to thank each and every last one of you, all 38. And this 38 comes from YouTube, Twitter, and SoundCloud. Given I have more time for exploration due to changes with me job, I definitely am thankful that anybody has clicked a follow button and is willing to take time out of their life to listen to me. And, I want to take time out of my life to thank each and every last one of you personally. All 38. There's about 1 or 2 repeat followers who will only be mentioned once. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do a double whammy. Yeah, if you are on multiple platforms for this podcast as of this recording, you are getting a double whammy. Let me get that list. I promise this will take no more than 5 minutes because I don't want to waste your time by thanking you for your time, which is a heck of a conundrum, huh? Interesting. Well, anywho, let me get that list. Be right back. Starting with the explorers on SoundCloud, user 5812522213. Whew. Okay. Ben Jackson 103, Juan Santa Cruz 7, Brian Camacho, Abram Shores, Tis Official, Michael Clindred, Danston, see you soon, my friend, Isaac Arthur, good to see you here, Adriana Arroyo, Octurus. This user actually has been the provider of my PodSafe intro music, so definitely give him a check out if you are interested in a theme song for either your YouTube videos or also for your podcasts. Nosy Boar, The Real Space Geek, Sebastian Moller, John Tronstand, Riccio.oj, Petrograde, Victoria Meerman, Victoria Meerman. It's JD _. Miss Andre Callie, Nadia Pretty Gal, Just Ty Diza. I always get that wrong, I'm sorry. MJ Petre 1989, Allison Sharman, A My Oh My 5105. That's our SoundCloud Explorer group. And for our Twitter explorers, those are Fung Gizzard, Community College. Okay, well, hey, a follower is a follower, you know it. And yeah, Talarn, No H2O UK, Mark Bruce. Mark Bruce provides a Sunday digest of scientific breakthroughs and discoveries, typically on the nanospectrum, but also he will do some space things here and there as well. But he has a pretty broad science digest. It's usually biotech and etc. and other cutting edge stuff. But either way, give him a check out if you have any interest in what's coming out. Steven Mania, Altitune, great music group. They do a lot of gaming music. Tiva, my only Japanese follower, so thank you very much. Domo arigatou gozaimasu. Drew, Space Frontier. They have the vision of advancing humanity to the stars. I definitely agree with that one. So definitely check them out. And just because they want to advance humanity to the stars does not mean they have forgotten about our little planet Earth. Team Space Israel. Of course, I've talked quite a bit positively on them and will continue to do so. Hey, any lunar team I'm rooting for. Space Tracker, a nice news aggregate. And Team Plan B, a Canadian Lunar Xprize team. Again, I'm rooting for them. And they actually have a lunar currency, a lunaro. I know I'm butchering that wrong, but yeah, they have a lunar currency that you can purchase. And it's probably not going to be a big deal for another decade or so, but remember when Bitcoin wasn't a big deal? Oh, current Bitcoin coin price is at 600, roughly. And then we have Fungus, yeah, I said him. Suze Green, thank you so very much for what you have done for my childhood. Just hearing you in our living room growing up, I'm not saying it changed me by great degrees and whatnot, but having good music as a child is very important, I feel. And finally, for the Twitter group, Google Lunar Xprize, thank you very much for sticking with me this whole time. And going to wrap up with our YouTubers. It's only 3. Saroth01, Isaac Arthur, thank you very much once again. I'm shocked you even noticed me. And thank you for the shout out in one of your latest videos on asteroid mining, which I will go deep into later today. Charles Gorin, who was my very first subscriber. So thank you very much, Charles. You're in my heart. If I ever do anything big or something, definitely you will be on the list if I can get in contact with you. He actually has a video on how to make non-Newtonian fluids. So if you're interested in that, go check it out. From there, I'm going to leave it at that. And we are under 5 minutes, as promised. Okay. Now that the call out is done and all of the things are out of the way, here are the topics for this podcast, which I know there has not been a lot of good news coming out of the space sector, but I have found some, I assure you. So, that being the Google Lunar Xprize and their final team summit. So there was a few announcements from that really were nice to hear. Also, a rover was revealed by a team Hakuto. I have been mispronouncing their name this entire time, the Japanese lunar team. I was like, oh, it's Hakuto. Because, watashi wa nihongo ga skoshi hanashimasu. Jubun desu. Ie, jubun jarimasen. Pretty much in Japanese, I just declared that, jokingly, oh, yes, I speak Japanese and it is enough. And then I lament that it is not enough. Because I thought, oh, it's pronounced Hakuto. It looks like it's spelled that way, so of course it's going to be pronounced that way. That is not the case. So, Hakuto recently had some news as well. But more on the details in that later. Then we will transition into SpaceX and their explosion or fast fire, however, whatever you want to call it. I don't think Zuckerberg is happy regardless of what you call it, nor is Elon Musk per se. However, going to be looking into that, some insurance issues behind that, as well as Scott Manley gave an excellent analysis of what happened on the launch pad. And I'll be using his audio. It will be in there. Check out his channel as well, and the video as well. He gives a very good time-lapse breakdown, and the sound is awesome as well. The U.S. launch report, which, as he mentioned, is a veterans group, and pretty much they happen to be the only third-party film group on the ground at the time. Man, talk about the money shot. I'm not happy that SpaceX blew up, but, if there's some benefit out of this, I guess, like most media, alright, if it bleeds, it leads. So, there you go. And from there, going to be talking about the OSIRISREX mission, which, while it was within a mile of the explosion, it is A-okay. So it survived their whole Hermione thing. Hermione really didn't go down to Florida, but I think I'm mispronouncing her name too. But either way, it survived the hurricane and it survived the blast. Not that it was directly in danger of those, but it is A-okay regardless. So it will be launching within a week. And I'm probably going to try and throw a little launch party for that or something if you're in the SF Bay Area. Either way, Ninkasi, I really wanted to get an interview, get some info from them. They're a brewery, and they have a really nice space beer. I'm not saying like, oh, they threw a label on it. Their beer has been to space and back. So more on that next week when I get in touch with them. This week was a very interesting week, if you will. So I wasn't quite at liberty to go out and about and discuss with them as I would like. So more on that. So you know what? Let's get this podcast rolling.
3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff. Liftoff. Americans return to space as Discovery clears the tower.
Well, let's begin your Labor Day and your month with something that'll probably brighten your spirits. It sure brightens mine. The Pale Blue Dot by the late and great Carl Sagan. This month hasn't been off to great news in the space sector, so picking up this book for me to read this month really has been enlightening in more ways than one. So definitely, if you have it on your friend's shelf, if you have it on your shelf, if you have it on your job shelf, if your job has the Pale Blue Dot or any Carl Sagan literature upon their shelf, you have a good job. I'm not saying you have to keep it forever and retire from it, but that's definitely, I think that's a pretty good job. You may want to make some connections there if you have not already. Anywho, pick that book up, ask permission if you must, from your friend or job, but pick it up, give it a flip through. I'm reading it throughout this entire month from front to back. You don't have to, but for me, even just like looking at a few pages over it since I've had it for nearly about a year, just enlightens me. And I'm like, wow, so picking it up again this month really has been good timing and definitely really uplifting. So if you can pick it up, if not, that's okay too. Audible, if you have the PDF of it, give it a read, go for it. While there's not a whole lot of good news coming out of the space sector right now, there is the Google Lunar Xprize and their final team summit that took place in Tel Aviv. Now, there wasn't a lot of announcements as I expected, but at the same time, there were announcements, and that is always good to hear. So, previously in the podcast before, I had listed a lot of the team, well actually all of the teams I had named, and quite a few of them were mentioned in a intro video, which was done by Stand With Us on Twitter. So if you want to see that, check them out on Twitter, and they have like each of the teams. Team Synergy Moon actually got they got a launch contract, so they are going to the moon officially. Well, we can't say they are going to the moon, but we can say they do have a launch contract. If nothing else, they definitely beat the deadline. So pretty much if a team does not have a launch contract by the end of December this year, they are done. They are disqualified from the competition. So Team Synergy Moon picked a really good time to announce it right at the summit. So I'm also hoping for other teams, because Team Hakto announced their rover. So they have a rover, and they released it, and they showed it off. And it's a really pretty rover as well, I gotta say. And with all due respect to part-time scientists, the team, part-time scientists from Germany and Audi, this one looks a bit nicer than the Audi rover, I gotta say. Nothing against you part-time scientists, definitely yours looks awesome as well, and I'm rooting for you all the same. So looking forward to more launch contracts coming out throughout the year until December. Every podcast I will update you on if somebody does come forward with that. As for Team Synergy Moon, just to touch up on them real quick, they do have their lander, and it looks like a pathogen, and it is rightfully named Virus 1. Yeah, going to infect the moon, but yeah. Again, I do want to see, I actually did not come across their rover, however, unless their lander is the rover, and that's, Actually, I wonder. I'm curious if the lander acted as the rover, would that count? Yeah, actually, because you just simply have to go 500 meters on any access and stream back HD video and data back. Yeah, so that could be doable. Either way, looking forward to what their rover looks like if the virus is not the rover. But either way, so really happy for Synergy Moon, Hakuto, Team Plan B. They had a really excellent interview with the Tel Aviv News. That should be listed down below. If not, you can definitely see it on Twitter, because there's going to be a flood of links, and I don't want to overdo it. But Team Plan B had a really nice interview, and they even got to sit down with Team Space Israel as well, the host of this team summit. So big thanks out to not only the Google Lunar Xprize, but to Team Space Israel, as well as each of the teams that made it out as well, and for continuing to go forward. And I believe Team Euromoon, very humble. They understood that they probably will not complete this competition. Well, rather, they will not complete it successfully, but they will continue their solar array development. So kudos to them on that as well, because that is important as well. So, given that, the final day was quite overshadowed by, well, an incident you very well may have heard of. That what you heard, Falcon 9, as well as Amos 6, the satellite, and its payload going up in flames, or fast fire, or an explosion. Whatever you want to call it, it's done. Thankfully, there were no injuries, no deaths. It was a very costly mistake. Well, actually, you know what? No. This was not a mistake. This is a lesson. While there were human errors, well, I cannot confirm or deny until the Air Force investigation is complete, but possibly an error or an anomaly was somehow occurred. But how we react to it, there is a lesson to be learned from this, for all peoples, not just SpaceX, but also United Launch Alliance per se, Rocket Lab, even upcoming folks, like there's definitely something to be learned. So this is something we all can view, and not just necessarily like, view and laugh at like, this is going to make great video, but it's more so something we can understand like, okay, well, something happened with the oxygen, the liquid oxygen and the kerosene. Okay, well, what happened, and so we can better understand this. However, I'm not that awesome at rocket science, but I do know somebody who is. Scott Manley. The following audio is of Scott Manley as he gives an excellent breakdown of the video of the explosion, or
rewind, and we can go back and discuss in detail what happened. So running at a quarter normal speed here, there is nothing to see before the explosion. Everything looks normal, and then it just happens. There's no fuel leak or anything. Now as the explosion progresses, you can see the fuel from the second stage cascading down, falling towards the pad, and then somewhere behind that wall of flame, the main booster loses integrity, and that is the main explosion. Now, that's just basically a wall of fire, fuel and liquid oxygen mixing. And then out of this emerges the Strongback Tower. And interestingly enough, still attached to the top of it for a moment is the payload inside its fairing. And of course, its brief respite from this explosion is not to last, and it descends 50 odd meters towards the ground. Payload must still be inside it at this point. You can see some of the structure on it, and then it too explodes. Now, its fuel was hydrazine, and the color of that smoke there, that is nasty, nasty stuff. There's also xenon propellant inside there, but that's largely inert and wouldn't have any real effect on the conflagration that is progressing. There are secondary explosions that continue to happen for some amount of time. It's very clear from this footage that they will not be rebuilding this pad anytime soon, and it will be closed for investigation, so they will no doubt be fast-tracking 39A to get it operational.
And so that was Scott Manley's review of the U.S. launch report video of that incident. And he touched on a lot of very good points. I'm not even going to try and contend and expand upon much of what he said, because he alone made a very, very well, thoroughly laid out case on what happened. However, from what I've seen, there is a lot of what interests me, however, that I will touch on is the whole insurance thing, because I think that kind of gets looked over as well, and a lot of people were asking about it, so I do want to clear that up. This satellite, and this is where it gets really interesting, because the satellite company was Spacecom, an Israeli company. I'm not sure of any relation per se to Team Space Israel, but they are an Israeli company, small country, but that doesn't mean everybody out there is related. However, this isn't just, a satellite got blown up, or a Facebook satellite got blown up, or Israel satellite got blown up, and they're just gonna launch another one. This one was while it was the Israeli Spacecom satellite, this was a demonstration per se. Spacecom was already quite late on launching this satellite, but this satellite launch would be their selling point to a Chinese investing firm which wanted to buy the company, and the terms were set upon this launch. If this satellite could get into orbit and properly deploy, unlike a previous Amos satellite which failed to deploy apparently, they would buy the company. So the fact that this satellite just, up and blows up, it doesn't just mean that, an Israeli company and Facebook is like SOL. It's a lot more than that. Emergency meetings have been organized and are being streamlined as this recording is going down. So more on that on the next podcast and on my Twitter feed. So they're definitely trying to talk with the Chinese investing firm and the Israeli space group on what to do next. As for Facebook, however, they apparently they co-leased the satellite, and it was a part of their internet.org spearheading a attempt to pretty much spread internet to developing parts of the world, which is a very noble act. However, the question of insurance comes into play. While it was co-leased, it is not quite clear how their insurance worked out. As for SpaceX, I can say from my research, SpaceX apparently does not seem to be insured by this, because launch insurance covers launch and intentional ignition. So this, before any ignition was made, this happened. So the insurance is void and does not cover it. So yeah, that's really unfortunate. But as for Spacecom, apparently they got roughly $300 million from the insurance due to not launch insurance. Their launch insurance did not kick in as well. Nobody's launch insurance kicked in. However, maritime cargo insurance kicked in pretty much any time before pre-launch, as Amos 6 was getting transported via cargo across the oceans. It was covered. And even though it was on the rocket, on the Falcon 9, it still was covered under that insurance policy. So they were able to get something out of it. However, and it may seem like, they probably did the old Depression era of burning your own business down to collect the insurance. Their stocks were wiped out by about 50% and wiped out all of their profits for the year. I don't think that's a really good trade-off. Um, that's just my view on it. I don't think it's a great trade-off. Maybe we can look deeper into the numbers, but so far, 300 million to Spacecom for their insurance of maritime policy. Facebook and SpaceX launch policies are not covering them. However, it is unclear if Facebook is getting any of that maritime insurance policy. That I have not seen anything of. I've only found about their launch insurance. Either way, if you know something I do not, drop it in that comment section. So that's very unfortunate, but it's not the worst news. Thankfully, despite the blast, OSIRISREX was within 1 mile of it, and they are totally safe. And so, thankfully, OSIRISREX will be launching on September 8th. And I want to host a launch party. So I was thinking, oh, maybe we could do it at a bar, but the launch time has it roughly around 4 p.m. However, I am not sure if that is Pacific or Eastern time. So it could be 1 p.m. or 4 p.m. Either way, I will be at Gaslamp Cafe on Howard Street in San Francisco if you want to come out and have a good time. I'm going to try and get like some sort of thing to make. Look for a guy in suspenders. That's it. A guy, red shirt, suspenders. That will be me, I assure you. And so, if I can't make it, if something comes up, I definitely will post it out. But I will see you in the live stream. And I hope to see you there as well, okay? Well, that concludes our portion on OSIRISREX. However, I'm going to talk a little bit more about asteroid mining. However, if you feel you've had your fill and you don't want to go on this uncharted territory I'm about to take us, feel free to depart now. You have your restock. Go out and be awesome, friend. See you possibly on the 8th, whether you're in SF or not, but either way. From here, well, it's going to get interesting. Well, I'm speaking of asteroid mining, but more so something I don't hear spoken of too often. The process of asteroid mining. Now, that has been discussed by Isaac Arthur and Hank Green to an extent. Isaac Arthur actually gives several options. However, the point I'm going to make, I'm sure, you know what? I'm wanting to wager somewhere, either on some stack exchange or some corner of the interweb, whether it's on a local host or Facebook. It's been said before, but here's my proposal. And again, this is just an idea. I'm a sci-fi writer. This is nothing more than amusing that I like to write about. Not necessarily this particular process, but just this random. Let's get going. So, when we go up to mine asteroids, what do? Most people envision, we land on the asteroid and then we begin mining it, which actually is a pretty smart idea because there's super low gravity on the asteroid, and boom, you easily can break it apart and send it back. But then it becomes a question of, well, how do you send it back? Well, what do you use to send it back? Or what are you using to even mine it? Are you sending out a mining rig? Are you sending out a mining ship that returns? Does it have to launch again? Or does it just go around in orbit, then launch again? Which is a pretty good idea. But, so is it going to be human crewed? Will it be human and robot? And these are many different options we can discuss. But one thing I've thought about is, what if we just, instead of mining the asteroid while it's in orbit, whether it's a near-Earth object or something from the asteroid belt or other 3 belts, what if we just send out a propulsion system and attach to the asteroid? It could be a near-Earth object for starters, because that's not too far away, but it attaches to the near-Earth object and redirects it into the moon. So this, however, is going on the assumption that we have created a mining facility on the moon that is sustainable with solar power that can last through the 2-week night on the moon. Surviving those nights, you would have enough power to get through, and you have a team that once that asteroid impacts within a safe zone, let's say beyond 5 kilometers, or to be even safer, 10 kilometers, just for any trajectory errors. So once it impacts, a team of robotic astronauts and a human foreman set forth to retrieve the asteroid. Now, if you've been paying attention and you remember, oh, well, you said that mining in space is easier because of the low gravity. Yes. But once it impacts, I believe, again, I'm not a scientist. I'm just like a person with a microphone and a sci-fi writer. That's literally it. So once it impacts, I could foresee the kinetic energy being enough to somewhat shatter it, maybe not completely, but definitely break it apart, or worst case, inversely, completely compact it to where it is unmineable. But let's say it is somewhat fragmented by the impact, and the team gets there. They begin dismantling it. So now they have the asteroid near their mining facility, which doesn't have to move around to a bunch of different areas and whatnot. And it has a stable delivery system of, I'm not even going to say we have any sort of maglev or any super high energy system. Let's say we just have something like a basic delivery system via Moon Xprize. So let's say Moon Xprize is the taxi for that. So, okay, we have that in place. The refinery, the taxi system, boom. Okay, well, how does that justify the cost of and blah, blah, blah. That's always a really hard question to answer. But what I foresee from the impact is we aren't just asteroid mining through this process anymore. We're also moon mining. So once the asteroid impacts, it actually impacts the regolith and it breaks it apart. And it very well would break apart and release a lot of elements that are within the moon and some ores, more so titanium. So if you're impacting at different sites and whatnot, and these impacts don't have to be super deep or anything, but it would be just enough to where you're beneath that super hard regolith and you can begin mining out the titanium. And given the impact, will expose quite a bit of titanium. So in addition to the asteroid, which could alone typically, I've seen a lot of estimates that say an average asteroid of scrap metal would run around 100 million. Okay, so in addition to your 100 million asteroid, you already have millions more of titanium from impacting that. You're getting free money just for landing it near your mining site. Like, imagine if, oh, hey, you showed up to California to mine gold. Well, here's free gold. I'm not saying you can't get any better than that, but that's actually a pretty dang good trade-off. I really like that idea. Again, throw it down in the comment sections what you think on it. I could be totally wrong. I'm not a scientist. If you're like a backyard scientist, applied scientist, or engineering in any way, and you know why this would not work, please tell me. Would definitely like to add some realism to my own sci-fi. And if this is a process that could somehow work, well, let's make it happen. Moon Xprize is going up to the moon. They're going to be delivery and mining service. This fits the bill. Let us make that happen one way or another. And again, this is something like that probably would be unfolding not next year, not the year after, not in the next 10 years even, but definitely it would be a process which we could pass on to our children. And it could be said, oh, this is a very destructive process, but my biggest worry of lunar mining actually was, and this is a crazy consideration, but I was like, what if, we overmine the moon? What if we strip mine it to the point that it destabilizes its orbit? And I'm like, that's probably not going to happen. But yeah, you never know. But with the asteroid, and again, that's probably not going to happen even if Moon Xprize overnight became a super huge moon mining company, which I would like to see, but I highly doubt that they're going to strip the moon to its core. But with the asteroid mining process, while you are going to mine as much of that asteroid as you can, there is going to be some residue and ejecta that go beyond your mining area, or possibly beyond your mining area, or just that you really don't care about. And so that way, okay, you're shooting a lot of stuff off the moon in addition to the titanium from the regolith, but you're also getting somewhat of a replenishment. So it's the cycle, you're not just taking, you're also giving. And I know a lot of people say, oh, crashing asteroids into the moon is littering the moon, but if you haven't seen the face of the moon, you know what? I'm not even going to entertain that. Yeah, I'm actually going to end right there. I just broke my own brain on that one. That's it for this phase, Explorer. Resupplied with knowledge, you are clear to resume your journey. Whichever star you may choose, I wish you the best in all you choose to do. Until next phase, be well.